Have you ever wondered what it takes to successfully raise money? I have worked with hundreds of capital campaigns across dozens of industries, and I'm here to share with you proven methods for raising money in record time and at the lowest cost, while also obtaining capital at the lowest price. My name is Karl Dakin, and welcome to Motivated Money. Hello, my name is Karl Dakin, and this is the Motivated Money Podcast. In this program, what we try to do is help entrepreneurs understand how to raise capital, however they may do that. And we're not limiting this to small businesses. I also work with charities and community organizations. And today I have with me David Chametsky, and we're going to get into some interesting questions about how to raise money for charitable groups and how we go about communicating that. So, David, tell me a little bit about yourself for the audience and what you do.
Okay. So what I do is I'm a mentor. I help people get through some challenges and also level up. They work on their individual, then of course their company, and then, sometimes just relationships. It doesn't mean a romantic relationship. Business relationships are just as important to figure out how you can retool and see things differently. Additionally, as you and I were just talking about, was I'm heavily involved in charities and helping out. And that's what, that's sort of what we're here for, is what we can do and how we can raise funds to kind of push it forward. It's always one I hope.
Yeah. So diving into that, we have people who have what we call their life has gone sideways. It's gone backwards. Something's wrong with them. And they need to come back from that. And I understand that's pretty much your strength, is that you try to get into the middle of that and make things better.
Yeah, definitely. Because, we've all gone through what I call those Phoenix moments in our lives, the opportunities, and we've gone probably multiple times in our lives. But what do? How do you not get back to where you might be in that Phoenix moment or the Phoenix opportunity business wise, in any sort of circumstance? We've had it. And what do? You need to find the pathfinder. When I guide people, it's their journey. But when you're able to have gone through it and know what you've done, and I have a whole bunch of other resources besides what I've done, that's where the real power comes into it.
Yeah, I can only speak to this issue from the entrepreneurial perspective. And in fact, something you don't know is what we're talking about, putting together a podcast called Dark Humor, which talks about catastrophic failures by entrepreneurs. And I want to get into what we call the bottom of the roller coaster, which is everything you knew or thought you knew just went to hell. And now you gotta get back to it now. Some people at that point say entrepreneurship's not for me. Some are going to get back in the saddle. And I want to get into, what's in a person's head that would cause them to go through a potential threat again, a failure.
And I don't know if I would call it failure. I would just say it's just not success. And that's the real challenge. Is there people who fall off the horse or get stuck at the bottom of the roller coaster, using your reference, and to just say, that's it, I'm off. Like, I don't want it's too much. Because of some of the other triggers that are also in their lives. They might have been told their whole life that they're not good enough. You're not good enough. You can't do this. And they're like, you're right. I was not successful, and I'm not a success, which is one of those limiting beliefs that we talk about. And really, it's just, you didn't do it right yet. Again, to use an old phrase, there's 26 letters in the alphabet. Plan A and B doesn't work. Let's go keep trying and figure out. But it's not just keep trying. Because if you want to add 1 + 1 and make it equal 4, you can do that. It is not correct. It'll never be correct. No matter how much practice you do it, 1 + 1 will never equal 4. But if you figure out how 1 + 1 could actually equal 2 and figure out that, no, I was wrong, that was doubling everything, then that's okay. And that's part of the entrepreneur journey, is figuring out and recalibrating and retooling everything and look at the whole package. You don't only look at, did I sell the right product at the right time? Like I was talking about selling snowballs in Hawaii in July. Well, you can. It's not necessarily the best way to go, but you also could be selling it. It's already in a refrigerated place, and you're going to sell it to someplace that needs those things. So looking at those things.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can talk in a couple of directions here, but one of my favorite stories is a friend of mine was pitching for money, and he was talking to a gentleman who had a big fat checkbook and was ready to ink a check. And the guy says, I have one last question for you, to my friend. And he says, if you ever had a major business failure, and my friend at this time was very early in his career. And so he assumed that the correct answer, which he gave, was no, I've never had a business failure. And the guy took his checkbook, folded it, and walked out of the room. Because I know from my personal experience and having had 2, 3, 4, 5 catastrophic failures, is that your perspective changes on the other side of the roller coaster, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, it's your experiences that you have, and that's exactly right. Many people are afraid to say that they have failed or they didn't have success, as we were saying, and that's sometimes what holds us back. Is we're afraid to say those things. And as an entrepreneur, we definitely, we want to look like the king of the world, but you don't know all the other sort, or the queen of the world. But you really want to know what has got you there. Because what learnings, and I'm sure that's really the message in that story you just shared, is if you haven't failed yet, I'm not donating to something that might be a failure.
Well, it changes your perspective. I know that what I called my first and my last bankruptcy, I swore I had a big B tattooed on my forehead for 4 or 5 years afterwards. It was like a stigma that followed me around. I failed terribly. I crashed mightily. And then after a while, everybody says, you're the only one who worries about that. No one else cares. And fortunately, we're in a culture in the United States where failure is accepted as an entrepreneur. In fact, it's almost expected.
Yeah.
And to some degree, for certain investors, if you haven't failed, then maybe you still need to be reined in a little bit. But how would you describe this person who's now rethinking themselves, or how they look at themselves and work their way back up?
Well, I would use, it's the language we use. I definitely would use language like not failure. Failure, we have different words or use different energy. I didn't succeed yet. And believe that. It's not just, and you have to believe it. You have to go all in. So if like being an entrepreneur, whatever you're going to commit to, you need to commit to. And that's really what I would say to do, is just be able to commit. Because if you wanted people to invest, we're talking about investment capital, you need to make sure you can't talk to people and go, well, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to do that. It's not going to give you a strong background, a strong opportunity on your pitch. You need to be confident.
Yeah. One of the things I found was that I may have had my goals set a little bit in the wrong alignment,
Sure.
where I might have been striving too much to get rich instead of focusing on my customers, world a better place, a few of those things that now are common to everything I talk about. But when I was younger, we were all about ego and jump kind of stuff. And as I shift my focus, I now talk about the outcome, and less about product.
Right. And, there's 2 pieces that we can unpack right there. Is one, to know what you want. So you need to know what the finish line looks like, but not get distracted by those shiny objects. And again, as an entrepreneur, I'm sure almost all of us has done that. And I've been guilty of it because you're like, oh, there is no quick line. And I should have remembered, because one of the first comments I had in economics course in college was, there's no free lunch. Somebody is paying for that lunch. And when you look at that, you really have to rethink it. And I think that's the idea, is use your mindset to go, what? And that's why it's taking those deep dives. And that's what I do, is I take people on a deep dive. Be honest with yourself. We'll find success.
Okay. And Dave, I saw you brought with you your new book. I think it's your
Yes. My first.
Your first. Okay. So unlike my bankruptcy, this will not be your last book.
No, it's not.
So this one is When Your Heart Says It's Your Time to Soar. And soar is spelled SOAR for those of you who are into pain information. So just moving on, tell us a little bit about your book, David.
Yeah. So the book is really just a bunch of stories. It's personal stories, heartfelt stories, and jottings, emotional jottings, and inspirational moments that I walked the journey through. The journey. Well, if we think about all of our journeys as an entrepreneur, We start as a heartbeat. We start with that first thought, how we do that, and the same thing as life. Then we find the path. Sometimes not the right path, but eventually we get on that right path. And then when we do find that right path, we get a little speed that we can fly. I talk a lot about the phoenix metaphors and that we want to be a bird. So when I do a live presentation, I take people through and interested to see how many different types of birds people come up with in an audience. And it is because individual, much like our entrepreneurial journey, it really comes into how we do it, and each one's different.
Yeah, it is interesting because technically success is how you define it.
Correct.
And sometimes it seems like you're cheating, but I guess I'm going to call success something else so that I can get to where I want to go. But at the end of the day, that's where the satisfaction is at.
Right.
And I find that as I get older, I keep changing my definition. But I feel I have a long ways to go, even at my old age, before I peak. Yeah, I'm doing all I can for everybody who I'm trying to work with. So part of what we do in the Motivated Money approach is we're trying to help people understand that when they go to raise capital for whatever purpose, is they need to talk to someone who is going to most benefit from whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. Because if they're benefiting, then they have a reason to part with their resources and make it available to you for whatever you're doing. And as simple as that concept is, it seems like I'm fighting the entire capital industry, which is all focused on return on investment and so forth. I see that the mindset that you're talking about is something that every entrepreneur needs to kind of go through, become more thoughtful about, because if they truly don't understand what success means to them personally, as well as to their organization, we're going to have conflicts.
Yeah, no, it's great that you pointed out this. You need to know what a reward might be, really doesn't have to be financially. It could be, or how much impact you want to have in others' lives. As we started off talking a little bit about charity, how much do you want to donate, either your time or money? Because I'll never tell anybody charity work is only about money. It's all about showing up and being there. And that's really where the impact comes into, and how you want to impact and how that balance is. So everybody gets to define it differently. Some people just can't get enough finances and money, and that's sometimes is a crime. We've all heard all the stories of all the people who we think should have everything and don't. And then we hear stories, plenty of those are, and gladly there's more stories than that, about people who don't have anything but are willing to give out. That's why you always look for the hero in every situation. You look at those people who are helping that don't even look for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're actually designing a capital campaign right now where one of the packages for investors is they can take the product and they can donate it to a hero of their choice.
Awesome.
And I called an engineered investor candidate because they weren't there originally, but we restructured the entire capital campaign to say we want to do some give back. We want to do kind of Tom Shoes kind of approach. So this doesn't appear to be all about money. It isn't all about ROI. It's more about community. And one of the best things you can do in your community is point to a person who is a hero, somebody you look up to, somebody you aspire to be or to be like, and go, I want to recognize them. I want to call them out and say, here, thank you for being who you are.
I think that's awesome. I love to do that. I really enjoy sharing people when they've inspired me and be my hero. And that doesn't mean that I like everything about it. I think we also have that high bar on heroes. In today's culture, we talk about it, but it's really, what are you doing to change your community, your house? Right? I always say, start out individually. You change then your company, and then you can change the bigger pictures and relationships.
Well, and that came up in another conversation, which is probably too much time, but we were talking about a social benefit corporation. It's a new type of legal status that came into existence a number of years ago. And in Colorado, where I'm from, we were trying to pass the legislation, and we got into a big debate, what constitutes a social benefit corporation. And without naming names, there was one group who had the bar set so high, I referred to it as the Olympic triathlete.
Right.
I think I go, I'd have to be perfect in 3 sports even to compete for the status. And I was arguing for what I call single sport high school qualities. Because I said, any company who wants to benefit our community should be able to gain recognition for it. And fortunately, I won that particular debate, and we got it into statute in the state of Colorado. Yeah, it's interesting how we define a hero, and sometimes we put them up on a pedestal, and we go, "I can't be that good," or "I can't."
And that's part of the mindset is I can't get to whatever you think that pedestal is. And I've had the conversation. Perfection is just a one moment in time. Because if you think about it in baseball sense, a perfect game, the next time that person pitches, they're not perfect, right? And we talk about, the greats, Michelangelo, right? So that's a perfect statue. But then you can see little things along the way, and there is no perfection. It's our mindset that puts it there and how we see things.
Yeah, and that's, I think, where a lot of entrepreneurs get into trouble because they think they have to be better than they are. And yet they have all this power, all this capability of doing great good in their community. Sometimes all they got to do is just do it. The power, the resources, everything's already there. They don't have to do anything other than just kind of act on it.
Yep.
And that's so much different.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. Is we just need to do it. And if it scares you, go do it. Really, there's a famous, I can't think of who said it, but just go do it. There's a famous speech, just go do it. No matter what, if it scares you, do it. If it's passionate, go do it. And just keep going until you find what really resonates with you. And when you do it, go do it. And it's really great. And as an entrepreneur, if you have a vision, so today I'm not wearing the green suit, but I'm still with my teal colors. But people had laughed at me and they were like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I knew what it makes me feel. And you're not going to knock me off my pedestal, because what each of our pedestals are, it has to start individually. And by having the pedestal, it doesn't matter. They can't hurt you. It's a Superman suit.
Yeah, it didn't look like Superman suit, but no, but
he has his suit. I have mine.
I know. Yeah, mine's Krypton. But anyway, I think it is important for entrepreneurs to. They typically are overconfident in some ways, and yet at the same time, I see that they often are above fear. So I'm afraid of failure, and failure is fear of that. But entrepreneurship, in my mind, is the ability to go out and fail.
Yeah, it does. It gives you that license. I've done this before until you find it. It's practice, it's rehearsals, it's having the right mentors, having the right opportunities, and saying yes a lot, even when you might not feel like it.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to work with a speech coach a number of decades ago who had a saying, the difference between a good speech and a great speech was 1,000 repetitions. And I've learned from that yes, the first time you do anything, if you're expecting perfection, you really need to reset your mind, because anytime you do something the first time, it can't be perfect. Practice is there for a reason. That's why you get into the pros in the sport by playing level after level of sport. Same thing in working with different businesses. If it's your fourth or fifth business, it's going to be better than your first business.
Yeah, and that's what I always talk about, though, using a sports analogy, is, the rookie at the beginning of the season says the game's moving way too quickly. And then by the end of the season, using repetition, the right coaching, the right background, the game hasn't slowed down, but he sees it differently. And that's what it is. Look for your vision and have the ability to see it differently.
So, David, if somebody wants to get your book or get a hold of you, please give us a URL or a web address or something like that.
Yeah. So at my website, davidchametsky.com, and we'll probably in the notes, we'll have the spelling of Chametsky. It's a little scary. There's a Z. You can find me on social media, and it is on Amazon as well. So, there's a bunch of different ways to get in touch with me. And I'd love to hear from everybody to figure out their journey. And it's always great to have people connect.
Yeah. So for listeners to the Motivated Money podcast, I always like to give you guys a chance to go home and do something on your own. And so I'm going to ask you to be introspective this week. I'm going to ask you to look at yourself and ask yourself the question, who am I? What's my mindset? How am I dealing with failure or the potential of failure as an entrepreneur? And how can I convert that? How can I change that around by, as David's describing it differently? Thinking of it differently. It's a step on a journey. It's not the end of the journey.
Correct.
Well, thank you very much, David. I appreciate you being my guest today on the Motivated Money podcast, and we'll look forward to talking to all the listeners here at a podcast in the future.
Thank you for listening in to Motivated Money. If you like this or any other episodes, make sure to leave a rating and review of the show. We love to hear your feedback and want to make this the best possible show for you. Also, if you like this episode, make sure you share it with someone you know who is seeking to raise capital. They will appreciate learning what you now know about raising funding. I'll see you on the next episode of Motivated Money.